Hey internets, it's Jake, and this is Mini Terrain Domain. This is a special Gaslights in the Gloam one-shot, utilizing the Shadows over Driftchapel Adventure Kit playtest from Absolute Tabletop that is currently midway through, I believe, on their Kickstarter. Fully funded in just a couple of hours. So you can head over to kickstarter.com and look up Absolute Tabletop or look up the Shadows over Driftchapel, and you will see this, which of course I backed. But I am a longtime collaborator with Absolute Tabletop, and myself and several other wonderful GMs out in the community have been granted access to some limited release materials for the purposes of playtesting. So we are going to be stress testing some things in the Gloam setting tonight. I'm very excited about this. The adventure kits are something that are designed to be used with any system, with a primarily kind of geared towards D&D 5th edition, but the way the information is presented in their roll tables and even their monster stats, you could really take this stuff and put it into any RPG that you use. So we're running a more or less vanilla D&D setting, or style of play, with certain things that I've put into place that you will see. Most notably, one of the key features of Shadows over Driftchapel is the use of flintlock firearms. It is the fire and iron that has basically taken the place of a lot of the ancient magics. You will see magic from the players in this game. We're not playtesting that portion of the rules, but this is the first my players are hearing of this. There may be a cost attributed to the use of magic. So what I'm going to do before we get into, because I kind of want to slip after introductions, I want to slip into getting us into the spirit of this setting in character for the next couple hours as we take a journey through the very dark and gloomy setting of Shadows over Driftchapel. So I'm going to go around the horn here, and I'm going to have each of the players introduce themselves and tell us who they are playing in tonight's game. And we're going to start up in my upper right corner with Karen.
Hello everyone, I'm Karen. I am playing Verity tonight. She is a human cleric of the light. She's kind of a no-nonsense, feels that she's, one of the last bastions of this light as the Gloam is taking over, and so does everything in her power to help stop the spread.
Next up is Cameron.
Hello, great to be here. I will be playing Sir Orban Mossfoot, the Halfling Paladin, Champion of the Light. Him and Verity have been on several crusades against the Gloam. He is eager to see what awaits him tonight.
Next up, Seth.
Hello, I will be playing Osmond, a human fighter, battle master. He is a commander, and he's also pretty no nonsense. Being out on the front line of most things, he's kind of seen a lot of what's going on firsthand, so he's kind of hardened to a lot of what's going on at this point.
Next will be Joseph.
How's it going, everybody? Joe. Tonight I'm playing Aubrey Cunningham. He's quite a happy-go-lucky bard, like most bards should be. Very social, very very loving of his fellow man, if you will. Quick with a wit, quick with a joke. No insult is too great. I'm hoping to have a wonderful time and spread as much joy and cheer as quite possible for any human being to do. That's it.
And last in the lineup is Adrian.
Well, I'm gonna play Bethethor at Dragonborn Ranger. He's gonna be there trying to keep everyone's back safe and keep them alive. Well, he's very quick with his ranged weapons and short sword, and he's ready to kick some ass.
Excellent. I look forward to the next couple hours. I've had the fortune of playing with everybody here at least once, except for Seth. This is the first time playing with Seth, and Joe and I have played together in a game once a couple years ago. So I'm very happy to have everybody here at this virtual table as we prepare to step into some D&D with just a hint of that Call of Cthulhu vibe thrown into it. One thing I will say, that we are not pulling any punches in terms of role play or anything like that. These guys have spent the last week, since, well, a few days, whenever it was I put up the playtest, about a week ago, really forming their characters and figuring out their alliances. They will be playing at level 3, but we may have just slight bits of informality as we address certain rule issues and rule-specific things for the setting. That said, we are going to dip into the world as I give you just a little bit of narrative overview. And this is actually going to be the first that these players are hearing some of this as well, as we step into this world. This adventure takes place in the world of Gloam, a near-apocalyptic Victorian colonial-inspired fantasy realm where burgeoning technology has brought an end to the old magics and ushered in an era of grim survival, black powder, and shadowy horrors beyond human reckoning. As the end of all things approaches, the humans of the 5 dominions cower behind the walls of their dwindling cities, clinging to vile gods twisted by the Gloam. Meanwhile, scarce tribes of elves and dwarves, now called ghasts, corrupted by the darkness, eke out a savage survival in twilit forests and crumbling caverns. Now, foolhardy men and women, wielding misplaced bravery and trusty flintlocks, venture beyond the crumbling walls of their cities on horseback or aboard dirigibles, seeking fortune or redemption down the withered road. Humanity rules over a doomed world, but time is running out. Shadows over Driftchapel takes place in the barony of Strand, a rain-soaked coastal region veined with rivers and wetlands. It borders Trawler's Bay. Strand is controlled by Baroness Yesenia Foxglove, whose infamously bloody rise to power left her father, 3 brothers, and husband dead. Watery horrors emerge from the sea and marshes, and rumors swirl of a coven of witches practicing illegal and profane magics in the darkest depths of the erstwhile bog. So that's kind of a general overview of the setting and some things that are happening within this world overall. Our adventure takes place tonight in the seaside town of Driftchapel. This adventure kit takes place in the town of Driftchapel, an insignificant seaside cluster of stone structures veined with crisscrossing waterways and alleys. The village sits on Trawler's Bay, a dark and endless stretch of briny water. Driftchapel is a maddening maze of buildings built haphazardly over generations as the fishing trade waxed and waned. Driftchapel has been plagued by underlying darkness of the Gloam for decades. Townsfolk succumbing to madness, rumors of strange creatures lurking in the shadows, and an abnormally high rate of violent crime. But lately, things have grown even more dire. Men and women are disappearing. A widespread paranoia has taken grip, and the monsters once believed to be myths are growing bolder by the day. You find yourselves, all of you, in a quiet and a semi-secret club known as the Narwhal's Refuge. It's located on the bloated wharf along the and nearby the quays and where the water comes inland. Some of these narrow channels actually lead into the city itself. It is down on the docks where this place is tucked in, kind of underneath one set of docks, almost at the water's level. And despite the gloominess outside, the pouring rain, the gathering storm outside, the interior is brightly lit by fires. Music plays. People drink. And you actually hear bits and pieces of laughter as you all find yourselves scattered around this club, tavern, speakeasy, call it what you will. We're going to go around, as there are a few people in here beside yourselves, people that have proven themselves. For no one gets into the Narwhal's Refuge without the scrutiny with his one good eye of the barkeep and owner, One-Eyed Jake. One-Eyed Jake is at the bar now, a filthy rag in hand. You're not sure if the rag is intentionally making the glasses dirtier or if he's genuinely trying to clean them, as he sits there with this rag just casting around with his one eye. And he glances over and he sees the bard, Aubrey. Tell us where Aubrey comes from, why he's here, who he is. Tell us about Aubrey.
All right. Aubrey has been wandering town to town, taking coin and meals at every tavern he can for quite some time, nearly 20 years since the loss of his wife and daughter to the plague, which we now know is a sickness from the Gloam. He carries with him always, worn about his neck, a braid of his daughter's hair, a lock from his greatest fan, as it were. And he finds himself here tonight, traveling with good friend Bethator, and seeing other good friends here in the tavern tonight, and basically looking for camaraderie and hoping he gets a chance to earn some coin up upon the stage. But he has had a long journey thus far that has led him here.
As you cast, go ahead.
And he looks up at One-Eyed Jake and says, "Ha, Jake, my friend, it has been a long time, indeed a long time. Perhaps a coin or a round of drinks here for the crowd of my friends. We are the only crowd of importance, of course."
Of course. You throw that word friends around a bit too easy, methinks. But it's your livelihood. Coins on the table, drinks in the glass. You know how it goes.
He tosses a good small handful of coins down, and looks back at the others and says, "I don't use the term friends loosely. They have earned it."
Who is immediately next to you of this group?
He looks to his side, and who is immediately next to him? Is it perhaps Orban, Osmond, Bethator, Verity? Who
Methinks
comes up
your
right
friends are a bit shy to admit to being your friends, Aubrey. I tell you what, I'll pour the drink.
And he takes out a bottle and a glass and begins to pour.
Hey, which of you'll take that and call yourself a friend to Aubrey?
Who's going to take the drink?
It is hard for some people to want to call themselves out publicly when they're standing beside someone in such fine clothes. These are silks, straight from the southern lands. It is a little intimidating, I do understand. Come, friends, be not afraid. Come and drink with me.
So Bethator was just standing at the back. He just glances at the bar and he just scoffs, like kind of chuckles. It's like this guy again is what he thinks. Like, I think I have been saving your ass for the last 3 or 4 years. Stop that.
I'll try. I'll behave tonight, I promise.
Bethator walks towards the bar and grabs the drink, finds a stool, sits there, and just takes a sip wherever it's on the cup.
And in Draconic, the language of Bethator's people, the Dragonborn, he calls up to him, to your health, to the health of your clutch, my friend, and toasts with him.
To yours, he answered, and drinks, drying out all the glass or cup, whatever.
Old One-Eyed Jake continues to pour beverage after beverage for the rest of you, setting 3 more glasses up. Each glass seeming to be perhaps a bit dirtier than the previous, and you think whatever corrupted or uncorrupted gods may be out there, that at least the alcohol will kill the germs.
Now, as some random bar patron comes up to try and take one of the glasses, Aubrey swats his hand away and motions to the other 4 and says, "We're the crowd. We're the crowd."
Hey, Pinky, if I catch you trying to take their drinks again, you'll be in the back sweeping up all night.
And
So I
as
think
One-Eyed Jake pours the glass and passes it to Verity, Verity would actually kind of hold up her hand and say, "I'd be a friend of Aubrey, but not for me this night." And she would push the glass back towards.
Old One-Eyed Jake doesn't even bat his one eye as he grabs the drink intended for you and downs it.
Not be letting good liquor go to waste. What about you two? You drinking?
As he's looking at Osmond and Orban.
Osmond would walk up to the bar and take a drink and say, Jake has it right to use that term friends pretty lightly there, Aubrey. And I just kind of nudge him with my shoulder, and I take my drink, sit down, and take a nice long sip of it.
I think at this point there would be a hard tug on Aubrey's fine silks. from below and behind. Ho, friend! No, I don't like the bars. They're a bit high for my tastes. Please, pass down my mug.
Oh, and Aubrey, of course, does turn. Oh, my friend, how could I forget? How could I forget? The smallest among us, but the biggest of hearts. And it passes the drink down and steps out of the way so that Orban, if he chooses, may climb upon the stool. Or perhaps, if you will, friends, we could retire to a table.
Smallest, but biggest of thirst. I think a table would be fabulous. And he two hands the mug, walking towards the nearest table, dragging a large bag of gear behind him.
You're able to find a table with little difficulty. There's probably a good 3 or 4 tables that are unoccupied in here.
And Aubrey begins absently, or pulls his lyre out and begins absently plucking. Little tune. And I think to start things off, I'm going to cast the first spell of sorts. I'm going to use a cantrip, using his well-practiced finger movements as he's playing his lute, using the minor illusion cantrip, much in the form as a musician today would use a lute pedal, to mimic and copy the music he's plucking on the lyre. And then he places that down, and the music of the lyre continues. Bling, 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 bling. And he pulls his flute out, and he begins playing a soft little tune on the flute. And again, sets that down, but the flute music keeps playing along with the music, looped in through this minor illusion. And lastly, he pulls out his viol and starts gently pulling the strings across. Come with me, and you'll be in a world of pure imagination. And he continues on sitting there, drawing the attention from others in the bar.
Indeed, you draw the attention of a few others as you begin to play. Music, anything more than just a subtle background, is something that's not heard very often. Maybe here more so than others. But I would like you to roll a performance check. And we'll see how well received your performance is.
I'm going to say quite. That is a total 25.
Whoa.
As you play, it gets very quiet, so that the only sound that is heard is your music and your voice as you sing. An occasional couple people conversing in the back. And eventually, when your music dies down, people raise a glass, and then they go back to their conversations.
And he begins stowing some of the instruments away, but leaves his viol out on the table. It comforts him.
Well done, Aubrey. Always, always could trust you to help lighten the mood.
I dare say, Aubrey, you sling instruments like old Jake slings drinks.
That's a compliment, indeed. I've seen him sling drinks.
After a little bit of you guys sitting around, who among you has been in Driftchapel the longest? Don't everybody speak at once. I'll start rolling random dice.
Just say, perhaps I'll go ahead and take that one. Aubrey perhaps came with Bethator. We arrived maybe a few weeks ago and secured some positions here within the small little private pub. Me with the occasional playing to the crowd, paying for the rooms for the both of us, and Bethator kind of keeping an eye on the, or bouncing the establishment, as it were. But I think perhaps we've possibly been here the longest.
Osmond, you, if I believe, have come in and out of Driftchapel a lot. Is the Narwhal's Refuge a place you frequent?
I would say so, yeah. Whenever my ship docks, I usually at least come around here for 1 or 2 nights during my stay.
What about Orban and Verity? How often do you get into this part of Driftchapel or this part of the town? Frequently, infrequently?
I would think we're actually probably somewhat infrequently. Not like we don't come here often, but we spend a lot of time on the road, going to place, spreading the word. So it's on our stop. So we probably hear every, I would say every few months maybe.
I would like Aubrey, Bethator, and Osmond to roll perception.
That's a total of 7 for me. Aubrey's really feeling the drink.
Total of 19.
Bethator and Osmond, you notice in the conversation that's going on around the Narwhal's Refuge, at a table not too far from you, you hear a name that has an air of familiarity to it. As you hear the name Portia. And you hear it in the context of, just as the conversation kind of ebbs and flows, you hear Portia's, she's not been herself lately. I have noticed. She seems to be staying out later and later, lighting the lamps. If you ask me, she's flirting with disaster. Oh, there's some that say she glimpsed whatever lurks in the shadows. And then that conversation kind of fades back into the background. And Bethator and Osmond, you're the only ones that hear this. And both of you recognize the name. Perhaps Bethator, you would recognize it more so. But you know that Portia Brown is a young, generally optimistic, spirited girl, dark-complected. She tends to wear her older brother's hand-me-downs. And she has a job in this part of Driftchapel, in this district of the Bloated Wharf, that as the night, the true night, begins to fall, she goes around with a pole and a wick to light the blowgas lamps that, you know, without these blowgas lamps, that the things that go bump in the night would encroach ever closer. And it's this girl, Portia, that they're talking about.
Oh. Once Bethator overhears the conversation, he begins to wonder what could be happening to her, and he tries to approach the table or the people that were talking, not trying to not be detected by them.
So you're just trying to move closer to the table you're trying to drink casually, but don't look like you're drinking casually, kind of thing. As you
Well, not drinking casually, just like he gets up, walks around a bit, and tries to get close to this other table.
All right, give me a stealth check. What'd you get? You can go ahead and just say it. You don't have to type it in
Total
there.
6.
6?
Total, yeah.
Does Bithator have a tail?
Yeah, so...
Yeah, as you get up, attempting to sneak closer, just kind of move closer, your tail is kind of caught in the rungs of the chair. And as you stand up, then it kind of comes up with you. And with a flick of your tail, it just kind of clatters to the floor. And the people whom you were trying to get closer to, they just kind of stop and are just look at you. And they kind of mutter, I think somebody's had a bit too much already.
So, no, sorry, sometimes this tail is a burden to drag. But I'm okay. No, then you just turn around and head back to the table with my friends.
Seeing all this happen, Osmond is going to wait until he makes his way back to the table, and then he's going to walk up to the table where the conversation was being held. And he's going to look at the people sitting there, and he'll say, I'm terribly sorry. You'll have to excuse my dear friend over there. He's had a few too many, if you catch my drift. Please forgive the intrusion, but I couldn't help overhearing a conversation. Who was it again that you were speaking of?
The human man and woman that are seated here, both of them have the look of dock workers. They kind of look up at you for a moment, and then you can kind of see a bit of recognition. It's that you've seen them around. You don't necessarily know their names or who they are. They've seen you around, and there's a chance they may know who you are. So they just kind of regard you for a second. And the woman says, "Oh, it's Portia Brown, the lamplighter for the wharf. You've seen her around, always wearing her brother's clothes that are 2 sizes too big."
Oh, yes, of course, Portia. I do believe I served with her father many, many years ago.
Ah, yes.
How is she doing?
Well, she's always been kind of, well, she's had a bit of how's that old phrase go? A sunny disposition, I think they call it. She always seems brighter and happier than one should around these parts. But of late, she seems to be drawn within herself and spending a bit too much time outside when it comes to lighting the lamps. She's taken longer than usual. If you ask me, I think she's trying to see what lurks in the shadows.
Osmond, knowing what is in the shadows, doesn't really seem to understand why anybody would want to actively seek that out. But hearing this information, I'm going to say to the couple sitting at the table, well, that does seem odd. By any chance, would you know where she would be or her whereabouts later this evening?
Of course, she's going to be where she is every time about this time of night. And you would know that it's growing towards dusk. She's Probably gathering their stuff and preparing to go out and light the lamps. Can't say she'll have an easy time of it either. Aye, there's a storm blowing in off the wharf. Wind's already picking up. It's going to make it difficult for her out there.
Well, maybe I'll try and find her later on this evening and see if I can help her with her lighting duties. Thank you so much for your time, and again, my apologies for my friend.
We've seen worse drunks than him in here.
I'm going to look over to Jake. I'm going to look over at Jake and just kind of wave at him to bring these to a couple of drinks, and then I'm going to place the coin on the table and make my way back to my group of friends.
And he does so, bringing a couple of dusty glasses and a bottle, and as with one hand he pours their cups, he with his other hand deftly scoops the coin into his apron. And you know that, based on the time of day it is, that Portia, in all likelihood, would be somewhere nearby, as she's probably within the half hour going to begin her lamplighting duties. You also can hear just outside the shuttered windows of the Narwhal's Refuge, you can hear as the shutters kind of clatter a little bit, and you can catch just here and there, you're hearing the sounds of the storm outside. What would you like to do?
So as Osmond comes back to the table, Verity would look up at him and say, what be that about? Is everything okay?
Well, I'm not sure how familiar you are with some of the people around town, but the lamplighter, her name is Portia.
Oh, yes. Dear girl.
Yes. The couple sitting over at the table mentioned that she hasn't been acting quite herself lately. She seems to be taking longer and longer to light the lamps at night, and they're concerned that she might be trying to see something that she shouldn't be trying to see.
Oh, the poor dear. I've seen her many times. She's always such a sweet little girl. It troubles me somewhat that perhaps something is bothering her to the point that she's slowing in her duties or what's going on here. Like she is generally such a kind and nice person. Happier than one should be.
Verity and Orban, give me insight checks as Osmond tells you this.
15.
Go ahead and just call out whatever you get.
Oh, it's say...
I got a 7.
So
13.
You got a 15, Orban?
Correct.
As Osmond says this about that she may be she's taking longer to light the lamps and maybe trying to see what lurks in the dark. You know, probably more so than everybody else, the importance of the Blaugas lamps. That the Ordists of the city of Oubliette, the sanctioned arcanists, when flintlock firearms were discovered and began to come into common use, and a lot of the magics began to fade, they also developed these Blaugas lamps that provide an almost magical illumination that keeps the Gloam and that which lurks in the Gloam at bay. It is an important defense of the city as a whole, and you know that if there's any dereliction of duty here, that it's akin to leaving a portion of a perimeter unwatched that could allow these creatures to sneak even further into the city. It's already known that the Gloam clings to wherever there is shadow and has touched many people with madness, with sickness, with darkness, and many who just disappear. So you know this to be more than just a concern that a girl's not doing her job. You know that there's more at stake here.
Orban will place his mug, finally emptied, upon the table, joining the others in conversation. We must remember that this lighting of the Blau gas lamps, it's a sacred duty. The light, it keeps the Gloam at bay. And I will trust no one who flirts with the darkness in such a way. We must see her. We must impress upon her this importance. We will show her the light. And he smiles from ear to ear.
Yes, Orban, we will show her the light, but maybe show her how the light is important. And that her job is important. Maybe she's, I don't know, grown tired or weary.
Weary? We will grow dead if not for these lights. It must be done.
Well, exactly. So we should find out what is disturbing her.
Perhaps. Or replace her with someone who is very, very appreciative of the light. Perhaps someone... No, you're right. We should speak with her. But the light... Someone who has an affinity for it would be a much better person for this job. Someone tall, of course, but...
I was about to see if you were volunteering, friend.
No, unfortunately, I cannot reach the lamps.
I was about to say that we just should put him there to light the gas lamps.
Could you imagine that? Orban on the end of a pole with a flint.
Oh, I'd quite need stilts, that I would.
Well, you do know that the lamps are typically lit with 10-foot poles with a wick at the end of them, that even Orban could probably stand on tiptoes and reach to the lamps. Darkness is rapidly approaching outside.
Well, if that's the plan, then shall we see to her?
Yes, if the two of you are wanting to speak with her, it's best that we leave now. The storm coming in, it's not going to be very well if we're caught out in the dark with that storm. She won't be far from here.
Worry not. You have I and Verity. We will join you.
Osmond finishes his drink and sets the glass on the table and stands up and looks at the two of them and says, well, in that case, I will take you to where she should be. Anyone else feel the need to come? Follow me.
More the merrier. It's been a while since I've been outside in a good rain. Always quite inspiring. Perhaps I'll write a new tune while we're out. And Aubrey downs his drink and looks over. Jake, keep an eye on the place, and flicks him a coin and a quick little wink.
He starts to say,
Of course, you know. Ah, you bastard. Every time.
and he kind of gives you finger guns as you head for the door. So everybody's heading outside. As you head outside and the door shuts, it leaves behind the refuge of the Narwhal's refuge. And the rain is already falling. The wind is blowing. Occasional flashes of lightning, and you can see the dark, low clouds. It is rapidly approaching nighttime, and it is already darker out here than it should be. No matter where you move in Driftchapel, the scent of fish, rotting fish, is everywhere. That's just the smell of Driftchapel. And that, with the briny scent of the sea, fills your nostrils. As you can hear the wind blowing the waves that crash against the wharf, the creaking of the dock under your feet. And you can see where already there's a few lanterns nearby that have not been lit.
Aubrey pulls his thin silk cape a little tighter over his shoulders. I did not dress for this. And then seeing the lamps, looks up. I think there might be some slight issue here. Shouldn't these be on already? He kind of points and looks back at the others, a little bit of concern on his face. Maybe we should step a little more lively.
Orban would be cowering from the rain. Not from the darkness, of course, but just the rain, under his stout wooden shield, which is more than ample to deflect the rain coming in. But as Aubrey points out these lamps that are unlit, he takes a step back. My word! Already, this blasphemy has gone too far. If only I had a 10-foot pole and a light.
We could always pick you up.
I would like everybody to make a wisdom saving throw. And just go ahead and say what you got.
12.
Buddy.
So it's the second 2 I've rolled tonight. I've got a 7 on my wisdom save.
15.
13 for the Mossfoot.
Verity, roll me a d12.
Ouch.
4.
There, as you are looking around, and everybody seems to kind of, in the howling wind and the pouring rain, the crashing thunder, everybody still seems to kind of be talking amongst themselves, and there's a flash of lightning, a peal of thunder, and the lightning creates shadow on the wall, the exterior wall of the Narwhal's refuge, where some crates and barrels, a couple of discarded buoys are leaning up against the side. And in that flash of light, the shadow dances across the wall. And when the lightning disappears, the shadow still seems to move across the wall. Lazy tendrils of shadow drifting across the wall, your eyes drawn to them, mesmerized. Tendrils wreathing down through the net, across the wet, almost decaying dock boards below your feet. And the first tendril of shadow begins to curl itself around your ankle and writhe up your leg. A coldness begins to follow up your leg. And in the next flash of lightning and peal of thunder, the lightning seems to chase that shadow away as if it were never there. You're not even sure if you saw what you just saw, or felt what you just felt. The shadows on the wall are just shadows on the wall.
Verity would actually probably pull her leg up, kind of involuntarily, and step backwards. And then, kind of as a cover, she would turn to the rest of the party and say, "Those lights, they must be lit now. We are in grave danger."
Osmond, you know that Portia, you guys, as I said, the Narwhal's Refuge is kind of below. It's on a water level dock, and there's a dock up above. The stairs are nearby, and you know that typically Portia would start near the Narwhal's Refuge and kind of move up and around the bloated wharf in a sort of lazy circle until she came back to the other side. If she's not here, she's probably up above, somewhere along the edge, hopefully. What would you like to do?
I'm going to say to the group, she should have been here by now. But if for any reason she's taking a little longer than usual, maybe the storm is slowing her down a bit, I would know roughly where she would be. We would need to go this way, and I would kind of point up towards the direction of the upper dock and tell them she'd be down a little further from here. We should get going as soon as we can. The storm's not going to let up anytime soon.
Lead on, lead on. My shoes are beginning to squelch with the water.
How many of you carry flintlock firearms? All of you, or is anybody that's not? So, all of you know that you'll need to take extra care in this weather with your flintlock, that the chance of it not working increases because of the pouring rain. You begin to move up the stairs, and there are, at the very top of the stairs, is a couple of bait houses and a couple of fish shacks where hauls that are offloaded from the boats are immediately set to be being cleaned. The stench of rotten fish is very pungent up here. You can still see some pale pink tendrils of fish innards that haven't quite washed away, but the blood has been washed away, so it has that look of blood-drained flesh lying around in little clumps. And you can see across the way, about less than 100 feet away, the form of the young Portia Brown, standing under a blowgas lantern, having just lit it. That's what draws your eye to her as you see as the flame catches. It has an almost blue tinge to it, the way blowgas burns. And you can see beyond, coming from the other direction, 4 more lamps that have been lit. But she seems to be struggling with the winds as she raises her pole to try to light another lamp. Trying to keep the wick lit, as the pole is raised up, it just seems to catch the wind, and it's kind of whipping it around. What would you like to do?
Verity would rush actually towards her to help her with the pole, to see if maybe she could help steady it with her.
So you immediately run up to Portia.
Yeah. And I would like, here, let me help you.
Oh. She seems surprised to see you there. Yes. I could use some help. That's very difficult with this wind and this rain. And she's holding the pole, kind of leaning against it, and her eyes are casting around, not where the light is, but where the shadow is. She seems like she's looking for something. I've got to get these lanterns lit.
Girl, focus on the light. Focus on lighting the light.
Yes, the light. If I don't light the lanterns, the things will come out of the shadows.
Portia, stop. Look at me. Focus. Light the lamp.
Yes, sorry, and she seems to kind of shake out of it as you sort of grab hold of her face. Yes, sorry, I don't know why I keep getting distracted. I've got over there some more poles and wicks. If you could help me in this wind, it's going to take longer. If you could help me light these lanterns, that would be wonderful.
Absolutely. Orbin, there are more poles and wicks. Gather them up. Let's go. Let's light these lamps.
There are 3 additional poles.
I approach and grab one of the poles and start lighting up the lamps.
All right, so Bithator has a torch or has a wick pole. Who else? There's 2 more.
Aubrey will look over at Osmond and Orbin and kind of give them a little smirk and go like, "Well, lads, I think you're up. I've got to keep these moneymakers nice and fresh. I'll be here for moral support."
I turn towards him. He's like, he's the small guy. It will take longer than asked. Light up the things. Come on.
It is a long. It's a long pole. All right. Fine. I'll manage it. And Aubrey will go over and kind of heft one of the poles up and try and wipe his hands off as he looks at some of maybe a little soot and filth kind of gets on him. And he kind of rolls his eyes a bit and goes over to or get the equipment needed to light the fuse, and starts humming a little tune to himself as as he looks up at the gaslight there, and blinded by the light, and looks back at the others. "I know nobody appreciates the oldies anymore, but leave me my peace." And he continues to sing quietly, partially to combat maybe that little growing dread with the darkening of the hour and the rain crashing in and the pounding of the thunder.
All right. So, who all has who all is attempting to light lanterns?
We have 2.
Aubrey,
There's one
Bithator.
more. We need one more. Who else is up to light some gas lights?
You don't have to. I mean, just because there's 3 poles doesn't mean you have to all do it.
Orbin will step up to Bellathor. "I've been waiting all evening for someone to ask me about light. Here, let me take this." And he'll grab one of the poles and kind of awkwardly waddle over to try and light something. "Technically, this is above me, but I shall do my best."
So
There you go, chipmunk.
It's quite literally above you. He throws him a little wink.
So each of these wicks poles has a wick on the end. The term is escaping me what it's called, but it's basically it's continually slow burning ember that's staying hot. And what you will each need to do is you are going to need to attempt to light the lamps. And to do so, you're going to make dexterity checks. Because, as I said, the wind is attempting, as you raise these poles, to whip it around, makes it unsteady. Bethator, as you attempt to light a lamp, make a dexterity check.
17.
It's a little difficult, as you're surprised at how much this thing just seems to, this lightweight pole is flashing around in the wind. But you get it steadied, and you hold it there for a moment, and there's this kind of... And the area above you is illuminated in a globe of blue Blaugas. Aubrey, I need you to make a dexterity check to light your lamp.
That is an 11 from me.
You hold your light up, and you see it kind of, as you're holding this thing up, and just... and it's kind of... You see just a quick... A little bit of blue just kind of dances up as you keep moving it nearby, but you're not holding it there long enough for the gas to fully ignite.
Okay.
And the opposite seems to happen. Darkness seems to be welling up around you. And I'm just going to check something here. Don't mind me rolling my dice. As I would like a perception check from you, Aubrey. And Osmond, what are you doing while they're all lighting lamps?
What I was going to do was make my way over to Portia and try to help her finish lighting the lamps that she could, by keeping her focused on the moment with small talk, mentioning that I served with her father, how proud he would be of her for having such a very important job within the city, just trying to help her finish the last few lamps that she can get to. But as I see Aubrey struggling with his pole, I'm going to briefly make a smart little quip and say, "What's the matter, Aubrey? You've never dealt with a long pole before?"
Aubrey just busts out laughing and turns away. Ah, I see what you did there. You should ask your sister. And then he goes back.
And as you say that, as you say you should ask your sister, you don't see this, but the darkness around the base of the lamplight has pulled away from the base of the lamplight. What looks, were you to see it, what would look like almost as if you overturned a bottle of ink into a clear glass of water. And this cloud of ink, or Osmond, perhaps you've seen the giant octopus release its defensive ink cloud in the water. That's what you might see if you had noticed it, but you don't. As three of these shapes suddenly detach themselves, shadow detaching from shadow, and all three of them lunge at you, Aubrey. Tendrils seem to lash out, flashing as if suddenly forming out of the shadow like daggers, as they are going to attempt to strike you. And they...
Aubrey is oblivious, obviously. He's still focused on trying to light the lamp, and he looks back again and calls out, "If I didn't know better, I'd swear the darkness is trying to stop me from lighting this bloody thing."
And only one of these shadows, as the other two seem to kind of just coalesce around you, one of the shadows, its inky appendage reaches out, and you just suddenly feel something pierce into your side as you take 2 points of piercing damage on your side as you were reaching up again with this pole. And in order to keep things flowing, because now creatures have entered, I'm going to go ahead and have everybody roll initiative, which will make it easier to track through what's happening. I'm going to use my AtCon D20 from AtCon 1.
Oh, you would.
I got a 5.
All right.
That's
So,
low.
who was that? Who got a 5? Joe? Aubrey? Aubrey got a 5. Bethator, what'd you get? Oh, just go ahead and say out, because I'm not sure if those are from other checks. Go ahead and say what you got, Bethator, for initiative.
I got a 7.
7 or 17? 7? Okay.
7.
7. Verity.
17.
Osmond.
12.
Orban.
16.
Okay, so the order is going to be my shadows. Verity. Orban. Osmond. Bethator, and Aubrey. So my shadows have just gone, kicking off the top of the initiative order. Verity, Aubrey has just been struck by something. Aubrey, would you cry out as you were pierced?
Yeah, as he gets, as the stab hits him, he would and drop the pole. He would definitely cry out. Probably startled and shocked, given the low initiative order. Kind of frozen by the fact when he looks down and sees this cloud of dark, shadowy ink spreading up around him and sticking into his side. It definitely frightens him.
Like, to your eyes, you can't necessarily distinguish one from the other. It just appears as if you are ankle deep in a writhing, inky fog. Verity, you hear Aubrey cry out from over by where he was attempting to light a lamp. What do you do?
I would immediately look towards his direction, and would I see anything?
You know what? Make a perception check, because he failed to light his lamp, so he is in darkness.
My dice hates me. That's a 5.
You see him grabbing at his side. You see that he dropped his pole, but you cannot for the life of you see why.
Okay, so as I don't know what's going on, I am going to cast the cantrip light on my shield and shine it towards.
I would like you to make a wisdom saving throw.
Oh, that's a 18.
An 18?
Yeah.
As you cast light on your shield, it does so reluctantly. The spell is slow to cast from this cantrip that you have memorized. You know the motions, you know the words. It's second nature, but it just seems like a struggle to make it happen. And even when it does illuminate, mechanically, the area of effect is cut in half. And the light just seems to have this pale glow, a little bit anachronistically, like a old school incandescent flashlight that the batteries are starting to die and you just can't get that brightness. Anything else?
I would also then move towards him. So
All right.
maybe I could see what's going on. Yeah.
You're able to cross over toward him, and with the dim light from your shield, you see the shadow writhing around his ankles. You see the small bit of blood staining the side of his leathers, running down in the rain. Orban, you're next.
I think Orban. Well, I have one question. How far apart are these lights?
30 feet. 20 feet, sorry. They are
Okay.
set to have overlapping light. So they're about
Well,
20 feet apart.
If it's not immediately obvious that Aubrey is under attack, if he just exclaimed and you can't tell right away, I think in the moment, Orban would just attempt to light his lantern.
All right. Go ahead and make a dexterity check.
Oh boy. Oh, hey, look at that. 13. I don't know if that's good or not.
As you are struggling with this lamp, you have to reach so much further than everybody else, reaching this thing up. And there's this moment where a gust of wind threatens to bring it back farther than your reach can take it. And as you're kind of fighting against it, that gust dies down, and you bring the pole forward, placing the ember directly into the blowgas receptacle. As blue light illuminates, and you have successfully lit 2 torches.
Oh, wonderful. Yes. Now, what's this cacophonous bit of... Oh, goodness. And he'll drop the pole and head towards the issue at hand.
Okay, and that was your action in order to light that. Osmond, you are there where now Verity has left, so it's just you and Portia at an unlit lamp.
I'm going to take the pole from Portia and try to light this lamp. And if I'm successful, I'm going to tell her, stay under this lamp. No matter what happens, you stay under this lamp.
She's not even looking at you. She's looking past you. She's looking over at Aubrey. Her eyes transfixed. Now that the shadow is illuminated by Verity's dimly glowing shield. So if you're going to attempt to light the lamp, I need a dexterity check.
That would be a 12.
You're used to dealing with high winds. You're used to being on unsteady ground. You can handle the pole well in the wind, though there's a part of you that wishes the ground was rocking to and fro on the sea, the storm-tossed sea, because then you would just have your perfect balance. Here, you've got a bit of... your sea legs are still under you. You haven't quite got your land legs back. But it's enough to move the pole in such a way that you catch the ember in, and another orb of light as you have lit 3. And from what you can tell, it appears as though you guys have lit half of the lamps in this area.
After I light the lamp, I'm going to grab my shield and place my hand on the hilt of my long sword and begin to make my way over towards Aubrey and Verity.
as you begin to move over that way, in the glowing illumination of the blaugas lamps and the dim light over in the shadowy area coming from Verity's shield, you see pinpricks of light, blaugas light reflected in shiny black orbs rising up from the waterside dock, clambering up, wet, elongated fingers, pulling unimaginably long arms and bodies up onto the dock as these creatures that you know to be known as the Deep Ones rise up onto the dock. They are twisted aquatic abominations that some say people that have disappeared over the years from what was once called the plague, or simply the sickness, but you know to now to be the Gloam. Some say that those who have disappeared or succumbed to the sickness became these Deep Ones. In the daylight, they slink away into the waters, emerging at night to crawl through the darkened places. And 3 of them have just crawled up into this area where you are now. And they are quickly moving into position. And I'm going to randomly determine who is getting attacked by these things, as the first one is going to be Aubrey. One comes quickly up behind you, moving through the darkness, almost rising. It seems to disappear, Osmond, from your sight, and then emerge up from the inkiness of the shadow that were moving around Aubrey's legs, like a creature rising from an inky sea. It rises up behind him. It has an almost anglerfish look, part amphibian, part man. And as it reaches its arms to attempt to grab hold of Aubrey, Osmond, I need you and Verity. You can see this as well. Bithator, did you go over there to where they were struggling, or did you stay by your lamp?
No, my turn hasn't come yet.
Okay, so you're still over by your lamp. And Orban, what did you do?
Orban has lit, I think, a second lamp. And
That's right. You kept lighting lamps.
Yeah, his movement would be towards the action after that.
So, Osmond and Verity, I need wisdom saving throws from the 2 of you. And just call out your roll.
So I don't know if it matters to you if I actually rolled a 1 on my dice, but I did roll a 1, so it's a total of 6.
It does matter in that you failed. How about Osmond?
11.
I need both of you to roll d20s.
I'm not liking this.
15.
And 10.
Osmond, as you look into this thing's eyes, something is burning through into your gaze, and you feel it burning your insides. It feels like a rapidly forming ulcer in your stomach. You feel sick to your stomach. You feel the acids in your stomach rising in your throat. And you know there is only one thing that is going to stop this. It is only by consuming black powder that you can stop this pain that is burning in your gut. You need to get a hold of black powder. You need to put it inside you. You need to eat it to stop this feeling. Verity, at the same time, what did you roll?
10.
As you look upon this thing, you feel a corruption oozing off of it. It makes you feel gross. It makes you feel desecrated, violated, and you can just feel that its very presence is tainting the food and water you carry in your pack. You need to get rid of your food and water now, at the risk of becoming corrupted by this thing's darkness. As you are both gripped by these forms of madness. When it comes to your turn, again, you can RP how you're dealing with this madness. This is just what you feel inside your mind individually. Aubrey. Fortunately for you, this creature is putting loose arms around you. You suddenly feel something wrapping wet, rubbery, slimy arms around your shoulders and upper arms, and I need you to make a strength check. Its grip seems loose.
Alright, that's just a 9.
Perhaps because of the pain you feel, the distraction of what is the inkiness seeping around your feet, you don't push very hard, but you do stop this thing from locking its arms around you. Another one, while all of this is happening, lunges through the dark towards Bethator. And it attempts to tackle you, Bethator. I need a strength check from you. And we might as well get one from you too, Orban, as one comes at you. So what'd you get, Bethator?
6.
You hold your ground as this creature that actually, while it towers over everybody else easily, it doesn't quite tower over you. Just barely a head taller than you. It slams into you, but you don't budge. But you sense that it didn't put its full weight into this attack. You also are not grappled. Orban?
It's a total of 5.
Your small stature, and you're being distracted by the light, you barely see as this thing emerges into the lamplight, and it scoops you up into its arms, completely wrapping its arms around you and squeezing.
Oh, this is one of those bad hugs.
And what page is this? Somehow my pages got out of order. How did 14 get back there? 14. Hold on. There's like one tail end of an attack description on this other page. I apologize. Oh, here we go. Orban, as this deep one holds you in its embrace, and you are forced to look into its eyes, its pale black eyes reflecting the blaugas, you see the orbs flitting as it looks at you, and it almost seems like it's making a decision as it holds on to you. And just for fun, I'm going to put your fate in your hands. I want you to roll a d6.
Oh, I got like 80 of those. Let's do this. I got a 2.
All right. Let's see. So that's an even. All right, roll a d6 again.
Oh. Also a 2. Fate's toy with us.
You, as it's holding you, you hear through its wide, overly wide jaws, you hear and see its black tongue flicking as you hear. But intermingling with that, you can hear a darker, deeper, almost feminine voice. Bring it to the deep. And the deep one turns and begins to take a step back toward the wharf with Orban clutched in its grasp. But it used all its movement to get to you. Now, Bethator, you have one of these things that just slammed into you and is facing you.
Okay, so as it is grabbing me, I open my mouth and I use my dragon breath.
All right. And what is your dragon breath?
It's 2d6 for 2d6 for damage. Is DC 11 dex.
That is a 17 on the die as it successfully dodges away. Does it take half damage on a success?
Let me check that in the PHP. Yeah. Half damage for that.
Okay. So what's the damage?
It's 1d6. 1d6.
All right, roll it.
Three.
Mixing with the rain, the acid just catches part of it. And this, as it burns its flesh, that stench of death and decay meets your nostrils ever stronger.
So, and for... Oh, that's right.
Is it an action to use your breath, I believe? I believe when you use your breath weapon, that's an action.
Yeah, it's my action.
So, you are currently engaged. You can stay engaged, or you can draw an opportunity attack and try to move away.
Well, that's okay.
You're going to stay facing this thing?
Yes.
Aubrey.
Can I just draw my sword as a free action?
Yes, you can draw your weapon. Aubrey, you've just... Whatever it is, you don't see it yet, but it has tried to... Something has tried to grab you while these other things are swirling around your feet.
All right. At first, he almost has that thought that it's one of the others that's grabbing him from behind to pull him out of this murky shadow that is rising up from the deck or the docks beneath him. And when he looks down and sees the rubbery, fish-scaled arms and these talons, the color kind of drains from his face. Whoa! What is happening here? And he is going to try and wiggle himself free and get the heck away from it. Trying to get out of the murk and get away from this thing that has his arms about him. So he's, in essence, not fully fleeing, but fleeing back to the safety of others. So So I'm trying to throw these arms off and run.
Okay. So it didn't really have hold of you yet, but you are basically trying to run away from 4 creatures. So there's going to be 4 opportunity attacks against you. As the 3,
I accept that.
the 3 shadow creatures, I'm going to use these ones here. The 3 shadow creatures are each going to attempt to strike at you. The first one is a 16.
That hits.
A 13.
Yep, hits.
And an 18. So all 3 of them are going to hit you. As you just feel these daggers of shadow, you take 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 total points of piercing damage.
Okay.
And the deep one, who you still have not seen, is going to attempt to grapple you again. With its extra long arms. Wow. Okay. Go ahead and make a strength check as you feel the arms attempting to tighten around you.
Ooh, that is not so grand. I only have an 11.
It is enough. Perhaps the wetness and the sliminess of this thing allows you to slip out as you sort of almost squirm against it with the piercing of the shadowlings, and you get free. Where do you run to?
Back behind this glowing shield, this refuge that he sees when he turns, this wall of amazing, brilliant light. Surely shadows can't pass the light, so he turns and runs right towards Verity, who's close by with him, or at least she was on her way there.
At any point, do you turn to look at your attacker?
Not yet. No, he just wants the light at the moment. I know it's coming, but
yep.
Yeah,
okay.
He's beelining for safety.
All right. That was Aubrey. We are back at the top of the order, where Verity and Osmond are both right there where these shadowlings are, and they are going to attempt, let's see, the first one is going to attempt to attack Osmond with a 15 on the die, or 15
that
total.
Will miss.
The second one is going to attack at Verity with an 11 on the die, or 11 total.
That misses.
And the third one attacks at Verity also. That is an 18 to hit.
Okay, so I have a question, because I have a reaction that I could do. But I've got this madness on me. Could I still do the reaction as kind of like an instinctual when something hits me?
Yep.
So okay, so I have a warding flare. So as soon as it's kind of coming down like this, I would kind of like glow a little bit on this brightness. If the creature can be blinded, it has disadvantage on its attack roll to hit me.
So let's see. You don't know. You don't know if this has an effect. This was an instinctual thing you just did. You do take 2 points of piercing damage. And you take 3 points of piercing damage, Osmond, from these inky shadow creatures. Verity, it is your turn as you are just overwhelmed with the corruption of this deep one, poisoning your food and water by its mere presence.
So she would immediately kind of grab. She's got the shield in one hand, but she's going to grab the water skin that's at her side and dump it out. And as soon as that's all gone, she'd be like trying to get her pack off her back and digging through it to find their rations. And once she's found them, she would throw them as far away from her as possible towards probably the water, not towards the town.
Okay. And you're able to do so very quickly as you just are dumping and getting rid of this food, getting rid of any dry rations you had, getting rid of the poison that this thing is introducing to you. And unfortunately, it takes your action to do so.
Verity, what are you doing? The shadows are alive!
Does the madness kind of go away once I've dealt with the food?
Once you've gotten rid of your food and water, you feel better. You feel relief.
Okay, so as a bonus action, I'd like to cast Healing Word on Aubrey, as I notice him coming towards me, and he's very hurt.
And I would like you to make a Wisdom saving throw.
How about a 19?
You're pushing through a veil of corruption, but you feel it give, and your spell takes hold. So you can go ahead and cast your healing spell on Aubrey.
The light gives you healing, and you will get a d4. So you take 6 points of healing.
And that is going to take us to Orban. You are in the grasp of this creature that is just beginning to move towards the wharf.
So mechanically, Orban is grappled?
That is correct.
Okay. Then, I mean, there's only one thing for him to do. He will attempt to destroy this thing. And grapple doesn't stop melee attacks that I'm aware of. But I mean,
it depends on how it has you grappled. And you're kind of a small package in its big arms. So it's kind of, not to insult Orban, but you're basically like a toddler in an adult's arms. And toddlers get quite squirmy, so I'm going to allow you to, if you stay in its grasp, I'm going to allow you to attack.
Yeah, so he's going to do the equivalent of a rascally little barrel roll. And pulling a smaller weapon, since I believe maybe his normal gear would be too much in this scenario, he's going to use Divine Favor, which is a bonus action, and it allows him to grant radiant damage to the weapon. And from his boot pulls a knife and jams it as hard as he can into this creature as the light begins to emanate and flow from the blade.
All right, make an attack.
That will be... Altogether, I have a 15.
You feel your dagger pierce its rubbery skin. So go ahead and roll damage on that.
Normally that would be 4 damage, but because of the radiance, it is 8.
You see, as this blade illuminates and cuts into its flesh and rips it a bit, in the radiant light of the withdrawing dagger, you see not blood but shadow seeping from the wound.
Unhand me, you Stygian fool! And he'll just try and like prison shank effectively as he can.
Osmond, gripped in the madness of this burning ulcer, you know the only cure is to consume black powder. What are you going to do?
Well, I'm going to take the small pouch off of my belt, and I'm going to take a mouthful of black powder, and I'm going to begin to swallow it.
I would like you to make a Constitution save. Or check. Sorry, just a check. As you begin pouring this powder in your mouth and attempting to swallow.
That would be a 19.
It's coarse. It's gritty. It has a foul taste, but you know that once it gets in your belly, it will ease the burning there. How much do you pour into your mouth?
Just a small mouthful, like I were taking a drink of water from a skin.
And it's like you're taking the cinnamon challenge with black powder. As soon as it gets in your mouth, you feel the urge to cough, but tilting your head back and letting a bit of rainwater fall in and wetting it more, you are able to down it. And you feel it go into your stomach as it passes your throat and into your stomach, and you feel that burning sensation pass. And you feel that sense of relief settle over you as the madness ebbs. So that took your action, but you do have the ability to move if you choose to do so. Or any bonus actions you may have at your disposal.
Did Orban make himself free, or is he still grappled?
He is still grappled.
All right. I'm going to begin running towards the deep one that has him grappled. And I'm going to yell out to the group, "Do not let them get to the water."
Excellent. The one holding you, Orban, despite your stabbing into it, grips you tighter and begins running toward the water. In this round, it gets to within 10 feet of the edge of the dock.
Oh, bollocks!
There's one engaged with Bethator that is going to attempt to attack him. Bethator, I need you to make a wisdom saving throw as the light of the gas lamps reflects in its eyes as you face this thing down.
32.
Whatever madness flows from behind those eyes finds no purchase in your mind. It shakes its head, it growls, and lunges at you, attempting to grapple you. That is a 18, so roll a strength check. In my best Hagrid voice. I probably shouldn't have told you that. Anyway, yeah, make a strength check.
$19.
As this thing, it's just trying to grab you, and you're just stopping it. You're just like, no, it's not gonna get you. You're just you almost seem to be matched muscle for muscle with this creature from the deep dark. And there was one left that...
What size are these things?
In terms of mechanical size...
Yeah.
It is... I'm going to say it's large.
Okay. I don't know if this thing applies right now. Gonna put it in chat.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, definitely, because it missed. Its grapple wasn't a form of attack, and it missed you, and it is within 5 feet of you. So, yes, you get a free attack on it. And you've already
Okay,
drawn
so
your sword.
Yeah, I had my shorts already drawn, and I just tried to slash at it with it.
Go ahead and roll that attack.
Natural 20.
Oh, okay. So I forgot to mention this at the top, but here's how I do crits. Critical hits are automatic maximum damage. So whatever your dice is and your modifiers, then you roll your damage die one more time and add that. Or any damage dice that apply.
I have already a 1d6 plus 2.
So that would be,
here comes the...
Yeah, so that would be 8 plus whatever you roll on the die.
2. 10 damage in total.
You slash into this thing, slicing away a piece of its flesh. And you see shadow begin to billow out from the wound rather than blood. You've done a significant blow to this thing. Wait, you had hit this one before. Yeah, you can see that this thing is hurting. And that was with your free attack. So then the other one that had been at Aubrey, that Aubrey escaped from, and pretty much everybody ran away from it. So you've got Aubrey, Osmond, and Verity that this thing is going towards. So let's roll a d6. And that's going to be Verity that it's going to go for. Verity, as it comes towards you, it seems to be trying, as you hear this, and it's just staring at you. It's the orbs of its eyes seem to grow larger. And I need a wisdom saving throw from you.
$18.
But it has no effect on you. It reaches out with its long arms. And that is a natural 20 as it attempts to grab you. So roll high. I gotta stop telling you what my rolls are.
So I would also like to do my reaction again on that. If
you already used your reaction in this round. We're not to the top of the bottom of the order yet.
Yep.
So no reaction, but you can roll a strength check, and if you can match or beat a 20,
I rolled a nat 20.
All right. So what is your modifier?
2.
You find yourself basically locked arms with this thing as it attempts to wrap its arms around you, and you're pressing against stop as you find the two of you. This perhaps it's the power of the light coursing through you, but it does not grapple you, but you also don't fully avoid it as you're sort of in this kind of standoff with it. And it is Bethator's turn. And you have this very wounded deep one standing right next to you. You're muted.
Yeah, I'm just gonna put a couple of the spells I have. Okay, so I cast Ensnaring Strike. That is a bonus action. And then I launch at the creature with my sword and try to hit it. So I'm rolling for attack.
Yes.
It's 22
It hits.
to hit.
So
Damage would be 7 damage from the sword.
what does it look like as
And you need to take a strength saving throw.
there's nothing left to take a strength saving throw? What does it look like as you kill this deep one?
I stab the thing through the opening of his mouth. No, I just push the tip of the sword deep into the wherever would be the brain or spine of this thing, and just watch it vanish in the air, like the same way it came.
As you drive your sword up into its brain, and your hands and arm continue to move through as this thing seems to lose solid form, and it seems to kind of turn to inky shadow and peel away from your arms, folding back on itself. Its whole form turns to ink-like shadow, and then it just splashes to the ground and is almost immediately washed away in the pouring rain as you have struck down one of the deep ones. Aubrey, you are up, having just taken refuge behind Verity and been healed by her.
Yes. Yeah, hearing the words and feeling the wounds closing themselves up, and for the first time turning to see these things. These horrible fishy things. So do I see, or is Orban within view, getting run off towards the water by these things?
Orban is barely in view, as nobody has attempted to light any more lamps. The area is still shrouded in partial darkness, and this area seem to have originated where you failed to light your lamp. So you can just barely see Orban kind of squirming in this thing's arms, as it seems to be moments from leaping over the dock and into the wharf. But one of them is still illuminated. And as you look at it, I need a wisdom saving throw from you.
Okay. Oh, bugger.
That's
a total 11.
I'm determined to make you all go mad. Go ahead and roll a d20.
Oh, that is a 1. I'm glad that wasn't an attack roll or something. Or maybe I'm not.
As you turn to face this thing, you feel like
Bad, bro.
you feel like a stranger in your own body. You feel like your arms and legs do not belong to you, and you lose total control of them. You stagger as if drunk. You can't control these legs that don't belong to you as you fall prone at the feet of Verity. And that's where you will start your turn, in the prone position.
Right. Yeah, and as he drops, you hear this as he's trying to say something with this foreign mouth, this foreign tongue wagging between these lips that are not his. Don't.
So, sorry, I don't know if you got cut off or if you muted or what, but I didn't hear the tail end of what you said.
Oh no, that was it. Just
Oh.
just random muttering.
Okay.
as-
You still have movement and action.
Okay, is that I was still
Yeah,
able
you
to do
just
that as it drops?
that just affected you and knocked you prone.
Okay.
So you do have the ability to attempt to stand or attack from the ground.
Okay. Laying there on the ground, I'm just gonna, seeing that Orban is in desperate danger of being hauled off. I'm gonna immediately call out to him, "Fight, Orban, fight!" And give you a bardic inspiration die for that.
All right.
Which being College of Valor, you can use that inspiration die to add to your armor class when attacked, or to the damage from your attack as well, because of the Valor Bard, as
right.
well as all the regular stuff. And then, in a desperate attempt, hoping these things are smart enough to fall for illusions, I'm going to cast Silent Image and throw a wall of wood just from the dock, just stretching and sprouting up from the edge, blocking the water, running a full 15 foot along that edge.
I need another wisdom
Good
saving
attempt.
throw as you cast the spell.
Wow, I am so average tonight. That is another 11.
I would like you to roll. This time I would like you to roll a d12.
Oh, and that's a 10.
Lightning crashes, silhouetting behind this creature where it's about to... It says the lightning actually strikes in the wharf. You see it strike the water. As it hits, you see silhouetted a massive leviathan of a shape rising from the water pouring off of it as this thing towers taller than the highest buildings in the wharf, rising from the deep. There's another crash of lightning and thunder, and nothing is there. And your spell fails.
Woo! He instead begins stammering, fighting, trying to get the little bit of fleece to hold tight in his fingers. They still feel a little fuzzy. He's still a little thrown off by that. And so he ends his turn there kind of staring into that blackness, still laying on the ground. Because I did not attempt to get up. I cast from the ground.
The shadow creatures are still lingering in this area. One of them darts across the ground at you, now on its own level, Aubrey. And that is a 14 to hit.
Oh yeah, that gets me.
As you're stammering, you see this almost like a rolling blackness kind of billowing over itself, this inky shape, and it just seems to dart into your face, into your nostrils, into your mouth, and you feel as if it's trying to burst through the back of your head. And you take 4 points of piercing damage. The other two shapes lunge, one at Verity and one at Osmond. Verity, that is a 19 to hit. Osmond, that is only a 10 to hit.
That'll miss.
I will do the reaction.
Okay, this is a new round, so you do have a new reaction, yes. You basically impose disadvantage on that attack with this, making it hard for it to see. Fortunately for you, the nat 20 was on the disadvantage, so you're still going to get hit for 3 points of piercing damage as it seems to slam into your light-imbued shield, The ink flows around the shield, and 3 tendrils wrap around and pierce into you, dealing the damage to you. And that takes us to Verity.
So currently there's a shadow on that's attacking me, and I'm still kind of in a grapple with this deep one.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes, you're not really grappled, you're engaged with it.
Yeah, so I kind of imagined that in that grapple I was able to get my shield up, and that's probably what stopped a lot of it. Sorry, Orban, I can't see you. I'm going to grab
that
my
problem a lot.
grab my mace, and I'm going to attack the deep one.
The weird thing is, as you go to attack this thing, you attempt to draw your mace. It's already in your hand, and your hand hurts, white-knuckled. You don't remember drawing your mace. It's in your hand already. As you go ahead and attack.
Yay. So that would be a 10 to hit with this mace in my hand.
Perhaps because your hand hurts from gripping this mace so tightly, though you don't remember drawing it, you miscalculate your strike and miss it completely. There's a ringing sound in the air as your mace collides with the edge of your shield. And that's now Orban's turn. Moments from being dragged into the deep by a deep one, grappled by this creature. What are you going to do?
Orban proceeds to lose his cool. You know, it was all fun and games in the beginning, but Orban doesn't swim, and Orban is not going into that water. He is going to scream out at the top of his lungs, "Unhand me, you dingy excuse of a nightmare!" And then plunge his dagger as deep as he can into this thing, spending a spell slot in order to use Divine Smite if he hits.
Reminder that you have a D6 Bardic Inspiration die as well.
Yeah. So that's a 10 on my 20-sided and 4 on my board die. And I get a +3, so I think I hit. Hopefully.
So 17 total?
Yeah.
That is a hit.
Sorry, I'm bad at maths.
We can all be bad at math together.
Yeah. All right. So if that did collide, oh boy, this is going to be...
It did, in fact.
This is going to be magic here. Literally magic. Okay, so that's going to be 4 piercing damage and 14 radiant on top of that.
Orban, what does it look like when you use this Divine Smite to kill the deep one that was moments from most likely killing you?
I think from the vantage points that the others have, there's a chance they see this kind of cloudy darkness abscond Orban and dash towards the water. This like murky mass, a dark within darker blackness. And then suddenly this luminescent child comes rupturing out of it, kind of falling to the ground, his chainmail shining in the light of the dagger as it gleams. And he's just kind of doing that like superhero pose on the ground as hopefully this thing is kind of dissipating around him. And he's just breathing heavily. By the light, yes. Okay, where were we? And he will kind of try and stand and run back towards the others if he can to help.
And as you land, the pieces of this thing as you ripped into it also turn to this inky form and then collapse like water, instantly dissipating. And as you drop to the ground and you begin to quip your quip, in the fading luminescence of your radiantly imbued weapon, you notice that the rain that is falling all around you seems to slow and stop for a moment. And then you watch as the water on the ground in front of you just kind of goes bloop, 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 bloop. And all around you, the rain begins falling upward toward the sky.
Oh, that's totally normal, right?
And all of you notice that the rain had shifted and now seems to be falling from the ground up toward the sky.
Grip with your toes! Grip with your toes!
Osmond, you are up.
Alright, so being Orban essentially burst out from this deep one's grasp and taking care of that one, do I see any more near or around him as I was making my way towards him?
The only deep one that remains is the one engaged with Verity.
How far away would I be?
There is a shadow creature engaged with you, though. It's attempted to strike you a couple times, but it seems to be unable to pierce your armor.
Alright, well then I'm going to attempt to attack this shadow creature with my longsword.
All right.
That would be a 16.
That is going to hit it.
So I am going to that would be only 7 points of damage.
What are you attacking with again? A longsword, you said?
Yeah.
As you strike at this shadow creature with your longsword, you draw your longsword along through this shadowy fog, and it trails. You feel no force of your strike. But as your sword passes through, the shadow and the inkiness seem to cling to your blade. And as you draw your blade back, it trails behind it. And then it just sort of dissipates as you destroy that shadow creature. And you look, and your blade, as you kind of raise your blade back kind of into a posture, thick red blood is pouring down your blade and across your hands, and it is warm and wet and sticky.
I'm probably going to look very, very shocked at this, considering that I was just attacking a shadow. I did not expect to see any kind of bloodshed or anything of the sort, so now I'm kind of frozen there in place for a moment.
Make a wisdom saving throw.
That's an 8.
As the shadow, as you notice this blood and you see where the shadow kind of dissipated and slipped to the ground, and it dissipates completely like a fog or more like a shroud, a figure is lying on the ground. A woman slashed from throat to navel, blood pouring from the wound. Her face, rain-soaked and already growing pale with the blood that seeps from her body, is familiar to you. Who is this woman that it appears as though you have just struck down?
I would say probably my sister.
What are you thinking, seeing your sister apparently dead at your feet by your own hand?
I'm going to drop my sword and fall to my knees.
Anybody else? Well, we'll get to that. As you fall to your knees, dropping your sword next to the body of your sister, it is the Deep One's turn. I need you to make a strength check, Verity, as it is yet again attempting to grapple you. As somebody in our little side chat said, they are shadow huggers, hugging without permission.
Got a 17.
That is unfortunately just not enough as it finally gets its hold on you. And as it grabs you into its embrace, it does feel almost like an embrace, as it reaches with its arms and its long spindly fingers grip your shoulder and pull you into it, and its arms just seem to wrap around. You hear this thing whispering through its clenched jaws. And you hear that feminine voice also whispering. And I need you to roll me a d6. Choose your fate.
4.
Roll me another d6.
6.
You hear this feminine whisper mingled with this thing's own abyssal tones. Absolute, bring it to the sea. Bleed it as an offering to me. And it slides spindly fingers up into your hair, still grappling you as it yanks on your hair and begins pulling you toward the sea. In this turn, it is able to move to within 10 feet of the edge of the wharf. That takes us to Bethator. As you can see this, you see Osmond, Aubrey still lying on the ground, being attacked by this inky creature attacking his face. Orban heroically defeating a Deep One. Osmond slaying one of these shadows, and what you see is Osmond suddenly drop his sword and drop to his knees on the empty, wet ground at his feet. And then you see the last remaining Deep One wrap Verity in its arms. You hear the abyssal words. You don't hear the spoken words whispered in Verity's ears and to the creature, but you do see it begin to drag her toward the wharf. What are you going to do, Bethator?
How far is this? Well, this thing is not that far, right?
No, everything's kind of happening within a range that you can get to in one turn's worth of movement or less.
Can you repeat that? The thunder just overlapped you.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Repeat what you said. The thunder of the audio just overlapped with what you said. I didn't hear you.
I said, that's funny because I said I didn't hear you. I didn't hear what you said. You asked me how far, if you could get to it in a movement, and then I didn't hear what you said.
I don't know. After that, it's like, they're not that far, right?
Right, you can get to it. Or you
No,
can...
it's basically because I'm going to use, for the first time in the game, the rifle.
Excellent. I was worried that you guys wouldn't. So, the first thing that you need to know about this flintlock rifle as you raise it is that normally flintlock weapons bypass traditional armor. Mechanically speaking, that would mean that the target's armor class is reduced by 2, but only if they're wearing armor. This creature is not wearing armor. I just wanted to bring that up, though, as a part of the rule. You also know that it can be a problematic attempting to fire this weapon in wet conditions. So here's what I would like you to do is first make your shot. Roll to hit.
Okay. 14.
14?
Yeah, 14.
Now, I would like you to... Where's my other freaking 10? I would like you to roll a D100.
Both or just the...
Both. You're rolling a percentile.
Okay. $52.
So the way I do percentile dice, there's a 20% chance that the powder in the flash pan is not even going to ignite when fired because of the rain. And the way I do percentiles is I roll my own percentile die, and then you basically have because it's 20%, you have to hit within a range 10% on either side of that for the thing to happen. I rolled a 51, meaning you needed to roll between if you rolled between a 41 and a 61, your weapon was not going to fire. You pull the trigger, the hammer drops into the flash pan, and there's a and nothing happens. This shot does not hit because it doesn't even go off. So it'll basically, as part of your next attack action, you can attempt to as part of your reloading, you can attempt to reload dry powder into it. It's not as bad as a misfire. It's just wet powder.
I'm sure of that.
It's just wet powder. But yeah,
you come with a red dragon. I could have ignited with my fire breath.
You would see this almost like I think maybe Orban and Aubrey are probably the only ones that see this. Orban from in the aftermath of your thing, and Aubrey lying on the ground. You see Bethator raising the flintlock, and you listen for that sound of thunder to come from the blazing from the gun, and you barely hear the click of the hammer falling, and nothing else beyond that.
And it's just the smoke, like...
Aubrey, you do have a shadowling engaged with you, and you are prone, but you do have control of your limbs once again.
Alright, yeah, I am going to draw a knife from my belt and try and like, I don't know, I guess cut through this thing on my face, and hopefully not cut through my face. Please, dice, don't let me cut through my face. Hey, that's actually something. That is a total of 16.
You did not cut through your face. You are able to... What are you using to attack this?
Just a knife, a dagger.
Okay. So go ahead and roll damage.
Right. So it's just... Alright, and that is a total of 3.
You reach in towards your face with your dagger, and you kind of moving it through the darkness. You don't feel it grabbing hold, but as you kind of twirl your dagger, trying to like just gouge into this thing, the shadow seems to almost wrap around your blade like twirling a fork in a plate of spaghetti. And you feel it pull away from your face. And with a flick, it just dissipates.
All right.
And as it does so, I need a wisdom saving throw.
Oh, that is only a 7. That is not so good.
You hear, as this thing dissipates, you hear a sound coming from just outside the 4 lanterns that are lit, or 3 lanterns that are lit. You hear a voice calling, "Help me! Father, help me! Oh, Father!" And you recognize this as the voice of your daughter screaming for help.
Aubrey would immediately bolt upright and cry out, "Aubrey!" Having taken on the name of his deceased daughter for his show name, and he is up and bolting directly towards it. As much movement as he can take, he is up and bolting directly.
So it takes you half of your movement to get upright. And if you've already used your action, so you can only get about 15 feet as you go running towards this, and it's in the other direction of the wharf.
Okay.
As you begin to move in that direction.
And bolting, he knows it's not possible. In the back of his mind and in his heart, he knows it's not possible. He has her lock of hair around his neck, but everything is thrown out the window just hearing that voice that he has not heard for 20 years of his daughter. So it's not even paying attention to anything. He is just running directly towards it. Stomping through fish guts and tripping over nets.
Back to the top of the order. The one remaining shadowling still clinging to Verity's shield as she's grappled and being dragged away by this creature. It is going to attempt to attack her, and that is a critical hit on the Atcon die, Verity. So as it attempts to strike you, that's going to be automatically 5. You take 9 points of piercing damage as this shadow seems to rise off of the shield almost like a serpent to a fine point that then pierces right into you, dealing this damage to you. And it is your turn, Verity. You are grappled,
Verity
being dragged to
screams
the
in
sea.
pain. So I can't move my hands at this point, can I? In the grappled I am.
You need to attempt to be ungrappled.
Okay, I will attempt to ungrapple myself. Oh, that's not so good. That's a 12.
Describe how you break free from this deep one.
So as the shadow pierces her, it causes so much pain. She kind of straightens and goes tense, really what's the word I'm looking for? Powerfully, I guess, just immediately. And in that moment, she, the shield that she still has on her arm, maybe clipped the deep one, and he wasn't expecting it. And in that moment, she was able to break free from the hold and fall to the ground.
All right, so that takes your action basically to break free from this thing as it sort of reels.
And I would like to, as a bonus action, to try and cast Healing Word on myself.
First, I need a wisdom saving throw.
13.
Again, your magic pushes against the veil of darkness and just barely breaks through. You may cast the healing spell upon yourself.
I get 5 points.
Orban, chaos all around you. You've just broken free from killing one of these things. Aubrey seems to be running off towards the far side of the clearing. Osmond is wailing on his knees at the empty ground at his feet. Verity just broke free.
Even stranger, Aubrey seems to be running off screaming his own name into the night.
This is true. What are you going to do, Orban?
Is Orban near enough to reach Verity?
Say again?
Is Orban close enough to get to Verity?
Yes.
And there's still a shadowy presence there?
There is still a shadowy presence clinging to her shield.
Orban will then pad his bare feet as quick as he can across this wet, rain-slicked ground. The madness all around him. He shrugs it off. He cares nothing for Aubrey screaming his own vanities into the night. Osmond crying on his knees. It is not to be helped. Verity he must save. And he screams, Verity! And leaps with a two-handed hammer strike down onto whatever this thing is. That'll be a 15.
That is going to hit. Why don't you describe, because I know you're absolutely going to destroy this probably just with your damage bonus alone. So go ahead and what does it look like as you basically strike Verity's shield and destroy this last shadowling?
So, Orban is like a little poor man's Thor. And as he soars through the night, maybe only a foot off the ground, but to him it seems like he's coming down off of a mountain, bringing down this huge hammer that is aglow with radiant energy. He strikes this thing, and it erupts sideways, kind of just sort of cascading off of her shield with light chasing it away into the darkness around it. He screams, "For the light!"
Thunder peals to emphasize your attack, ringing through the air as you destroy this creature. Let's see. Osmond, you see your dead sister at your feet covered in blood. Her blood warm still on your hands. What are you doing?
Well, as I've already dropped to my knees, I just begin to sob openly. And then between the claps of thunder, the rest of the group can hear me just scream out into the night. I crawl over to my sister's lifeless body and I grab her and kind of rest her in my lap. And I'm just crying and stroking her blonde locks of hair as I just see her pale, lifeless body laying before me. And I'm just sobbing. And I reach towards my holster and I grab my pepper box and I begin to load it. And I'm just sobbing. And I look down at the body of my sister, the one last person that I had in this life. And I just go, I am so sorry. And I just caress her hair one last time, and I kiss her forehead. And I put my pepper box to the side of my head, and I pull the trigger.
Wow. Okay. I would like you to... I want you to roll a d20. You're not really rolling to hit.
16.
And finally, because it seems fitting, so fitting in this setting, I need you to roll a d100. Roll a percentile dice.
That would be 30.
The warm blood slick on your hand as you load the pepper box. You draw the hammer back from the flash pan. It's slick and sticky in your hand as you caress her head one last time. There's nothing in this world left for you. As you place the gun to your temple, you pull the trigger, and the sound you hear is a click. Nothing happens. You rolled exactly the same number I did for that chance that in the rain the powder will not ignite.
Hearing the click, I'm going to just handshaking pull the gun away from my head, and I'm just going to begin screaming, just no, 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 no. And I'm just going to throw the gun, and I'm just going to start just screaming.
Make a wisdom saving throw at disadvantage.
Well, it can't get much worse than a 1.
Wow.
Yeah.
In
And
your
a 1 and
weakened
a 7.
state, to the point where you were about to take your own life, anybody that is looking toward, though everybody except for Bethator may not see this, everybody else seems to be pretty occupied with their own things. The shadows at Osmond's, around Osmond, as the rain still falls upward, the shadows begin to rise like a dark fog and begin to move upward, completely enshrining Osmond. Osmond, you don't see these shadows through your tears, through your wails of pain and agony, but you hear a voice in your head. Yes. Give in to it. You are my child now. Katu is your master. And you hear and feel the voice of the defiled goddess known as Katu. She has gotten into your mind. You feel her voice rattling in your teeth, seeping up through your teeth. And you know you have only two choices. Succumb fully to the will of Katu, or purge her presence from your body by pulling your teeth one at a time from your mouth. What will you do?
At this point, Osmond is beyond the grasp of sanity. He has no more recognition of right, wrong, reality. And as he's just weeping and he hears this voice, he just kind of begins to sniffle and wipe the tears just a little. And he slowly begins to scoop up the body of his sister and stand up and turn and walk towards the sea.
The last deep one. I got so caught up in the emotion of what's happening. All right, we destroyed. All right, you broke free. You didn't kill the deep one. You just broke free of it. Okay.
I think Orban blew it with the hammer strike.
You slew the shadowling that was clinging to her shadow, to her shield. So there is still this last deep one standing before Verity and Orban. You hear it as it looks at the two of you, and then it turns its head toward Osmond. And you can now see, and Bethator, Verity, and Orban, you can see Osmond walking toward the wharf. With each step that he takes, his hair begins to fall from his head. His clothing begins to peel away from his body. With each step, his form grows taller. His skin grows darker. An inkiness swirls around him as you watch him become a deep one. The one standing before you gives a snarl at you and turns toward Osmond to follow Osmond the Deep One, which will grant both of you an opportunity attack. Orban, you didn't look too pleased with that result.
No, I am just sad because I'm going to take all the glory from Verity.
It's okay because I got a nat 1.
I got a nat 20.
What were you? How were you attempting to attack, Verity?
I was attempting to attack with this mace that's in my hand. That I don't remember it being there, but it's there. That's what I was going to attack.
And Orban, you got a critical hit.
It's a dirty hit. It's so dirty. So max plus the modifiers and then roll again, you said, right?
Yep. Roll any damage dice.
So that's 19 damage. 4 of it is radiant.
You strike at this thing. Again, thunder emphasizes your attack. As you strike into it, lightning illuminates the entire field around you. And in that flash of lightning, that deep one is no longer standing there. There is only one deep one remaining, the one you knew as Osmond, approaching the wharf. And before you take your action, or actually, no, I'm sorry. Incorrect. Bethator, it is your turn. All of the original deep ones and shadowlings have been destroyed. The only deep one is the one you knew as Osmond, walking toward the water. What do you do? You're muted.
After I hear him scream for his sister, I just turn around, watch him try to take his life away with his thing not working. I feel relief at that moment. Right? I start walking towards him, trying to help him, to cheer him up, to try, to make him come back to his senses. But as I approach, he's going through the wharf and turning into this creature. I just stop on my tracks, my eyes widen up, my jaw just opening. It's like guys, we just lost him. What should we do?
And as you say this,
I basically go ask to Aubrey.
Aubrey's running away. Aubrey's got his own weirdness he's dealing with. So as you turn to say this to Aubrey, you see Aubrey sprinting the opposite direction. Aubrey, you still hear your daughter. Father! Father, help me! What are you going to do, Aubrey?
Oh. Was there more Bath Torres doing before it gets to me, or is this just a little interlude?
Well, you're next in the order, too.
Okay, yeah. He's just screaming, searching, looking through the darkness, trying to find her. Aubrey, honey, daddy's here. Where are you, pumpkin? I'm here. And he's just peering through the darkness, trying to see where she is, trying to listen to try and find the right direction.
As you move across through the field of where the Blaugas lamps are illuminating the area, and you move to the far side where the light doesn't quite reach, every direction you turn, your daughter seems to be calling from behind you. And as you turn, you hear her front calling from the other direction. You just can't seem to pinpoint her direction. And now, I would like... This could be pretty twisted, but this is how I'm going to do this. Osmond, I want you to roll a d20.
$12.
Now, I want you to roll a percentile.
$40.
There's another sound of thunder, but this is the sound of black powder igniting in an iron tube. As somebody has just fired a flintlock weapon. Osmond the Deep One is about to take a step off the edge of the wharf. As Bethator is looking to his friends, trying to figure out what to do, Aubrey has disappeared out into the darkness looking for a daughter that may or may not be there. Verity and Orban are, having just defeated some of these creatures, just looking on as they hear this sound. And there's this... And imagine it cinematically for a moment as each person turns their head to listen to where this sound came from, as the rain is falling upward and wetting your faces and wetting your hair. In the light of the Blaugas lamps, Portia stands holding a flintlock rifle, smoke billowing from the barrel. We see her as looking from the vantage point of looking down the barrel at her. And imagine, if you will, as the camera pulls back and seems to move through a hole dripping with shadowy ink and out the front of Osmond the Deep One's chest, where a hole has just been blown in it. And as he takes another step, he turns into liquid ink, spilling to the deck and flowing over it with the rain and down into the seawater below. And that is where we're going to end this playtest. I kind of put your fate in your own hands there, Osman. All right. Wow. That
was awesome.
I was really pushing the madness.
Good.
So here's what I would like to do. Because this is a playtest, I do want to get feedback from each of you. And what I'd like to do is I'm going to go around in reverse order that we introed in. I want to get your feedback, and then I'm going to tell you some of the things that I did. Certain things that were me. Most of it was straight up from the play test, but I want to hear your thoughts, what you liked, what you didn't like, before I tell you, kind of reveal the behind-the-scenes stuff. So let's start with Adrian. What are your final thoughts on this one-shot and play test in the Gloam setting?
First, I love the setting. The thing of darkness just creeping out, attacking people, and all this madness thing was really awesome. I think we should have used a little bit more maybe the firearms to give them a little bit more of a show light. I don't know. I think they work good as long as they don't misfire. I like the thing of like, okay, I think maybe for I don't know, maybe for the attack, if the powder is wet or something, you could have a negative bonus, maybe like a -4 or something like that, or just shoot without the proficiency. I think that could be a good way to approach the wet weather, basically.
Okay.
But in the overall, I had a really good fun tonight.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Good feedback. And thank you for actually being the first to draw a firearm. Since nobody had really drew any firearms, I wasn't sure if we were going to get to see those. After everybody's gone, I'll tell you a little bit more about some effects that can come about from the firearms. It looks like Joe might be away from his camera for a minute, so I'm going to jump over to Karen.
I love the setting. I've loved the setting since I first heard about it when the AbTab guys first mentioned it. Like, I think it was almost about a year ago, and it's just gotten better. I really like this. I didn't get to fire a firearm, so I don't really have much to say about that. I think it's kind of neat, but I love the fact that every time you cast magic, you may not actually cast your magic. It makes you kind of like, if you're a spellcaster, like, do I really want to take that chance this time or not? And I thought that's really neat, and I love the madness, making you just slowly turn mad, and it adds so much to the setting.
Excellent, thank you. Let's go back over. Looks like Joe's back, so let's jump over to Joe.
Oh, this was awesome. Huge fan of the setting. Just like Karen just said, since I first saw the release of it, and some of the info that all the AbTab guys were putting out, it already had me hooked. Like, it's just a fantastic bit. I love the inclusion of the black powder. Also, like Karen said, the magic. I mean, I understand the full workup for that of how it's coming is not out yet, but what we had right now was kind of awesome. There's a lot of things that had some interesting delays. The madness rules were fantastic. Like, man, I don't even know where to begin on those. It was maddening, I guess you could say. No, it was really awesome. I'm definitely enjoying the setting. I don't have anything bad or negative to say about this at all. The whole experience was fantastic right now. This was amazing. It was on the edge of my seat, gripped as poor Osmond was like struggling for his life against his own madness. That was beautiful. Yep.
Excellent. Thank you. Seth, really interested to hear your thoughts, being the first time we've ever played together. But yeah, what were your thoughts on the session? What do you like, didn't like?
Well, I absolutely love the setting. The setting has always had my attention whenever I see any little bit or piece of information being put out about Gloam. I've always just been keeping track of that. This one shot was fantastic. The madness mechanic is just such a great way to add just a depth to the role play, and just such an awesome way to create the story more. What little bit we did see of the flintlock mechanics and the magic mechanics as well, where there's a very high chance that either of those things won't work, really adds to that desperation and despair and just darkness that the setting promotes. And I found it just absolutely fantastic, and I enjoyed every minute of the one shot.
Fantastic. Thank you. And finally, Cameron, final thoughts.
So I'm going to admit right now, the lines were so blurred for me, I couldn't tell where the playtests ended and Jake, the master of the dungeon, began. I don't know how much of those mechanics were off the cuff from you or planned or in the playtests. I'm very curious to see what AbTab comes up with the madness rules, and if they haven't consulted you already, they should, because I think that you played them out very well. And also bravo to the players who enacted the results to a tremendous effect. Aubrey and Osmond with their madness was gold. I think the flintlock has a lot of promise. We didn't get to use them as much. I didn't realize that they were a core mechanic we were going for. Otherwise, maybe I would have included that a bit more. But I can already just think of tons of combinations if the rules in the setting kind of bring up some of the custom ways that flintlocks can interact with the standard 5e classes. A hexblade who uses a flintlock, a ranger who's dual wielding them, etc., etc. I do think that they should make them very volatile, though. So maybe high risk, high reward, right? More damage, but that chance that it might fail. Poor Osmond tried to end everything, and those flintlocks. Thank you as always for running, Jake. Amazing work.
All right, so thank you everybody for that feedback. Tremendous feedback. I will say that one of the things that almost everybody raved about was actually my mechanic and not in the playtest. So I will give the feedback to the AbTab guys if they aren't already planning to have magic have a chance of failing. In lieu of any real magic rules, that was my compromise. I told you guys all to just take whatever spells you wanted, and I decided while you were out in the Gloam that you would make a wisdom saving throw. And I basically, I don't know if anybody picked up on it, but I basically used a flat DC 12 for this entire session, with the exception of set armor classes. But I just used a flat DC 12. So
it's a good old ICRPG.
Yeah, exactly. I actually forgot I had intended to do an escalating DC. That's one of my favorite things I stole straight from ICRPG and use in a lot of my games. As you move through scenarios, the DC escalates, making it harder to do things. Okay, flintlocks. So there is a risk-reward mechanic in here. there is a part of the reward is that the bullets do bypass armor class a little bit, giving you that basically effectively a +2 against an armored target. If you roll a critical failure on your flintlock, it becomes jammed, it backfires on you, dealing damage, and you need to complete a short rest and fix your weapon before you can use it again. So there is a significant chance that it's not going to work. Also, if it were to become completely submerged in water, had somebody fallen in the water, been dragged into the water, your firearm would not have worked. You would have had to have completed a short rest. I'm amazed that like 3 of the 4 times weapons were attempted to be fired or something like that, two of the 3, you guys rolled within that 20% chance of the powder not igniting, which is explicitly what other, well, I take that back, almost explicitly also for atmospheric effect, why it was raining in this encounter. All right, so madness. There are 2 tables that I was rolling from. One is a D10, D20 table, which from a GM's perspective, I love the D10, D20 table. The reason it's a D10, D20 table is there are 20 things on this table. If you don't really want to turn it up all the way, you just have your players roll a D10 and take lesser effects. If you want to turn that knob up to 11, have them roll a D20. Every time you guys rolled on the madness table, I took what was written and just flavored it a little bit. Otherwise, you got the effects as they were written by Absolute Tabletop. So all credit for the madness effects go to them, with my little MTD flair added on top of that. The other table that was included in here, sorry, my playtest documents are all out of order. Fortunately, I highlighted some stuff. There's one other table that's kind of a Gloam. Hold on. It's called Gloam Effects. And that's where you rolled a 5, Seth. Your hands are suddenly covered with thick, dripping blood. So I use certain narrative elements to, as a GM, determine when you should make wisdom saving throws. And if you failed, which you did, that's where your hand became covered in blood. And then there was another one that was on either the madness or this one that says you see a figure of somebody. I think that's what it was. You see a figure of somebody that you know. There is a chance I made that one up. I don't remember. I can't find the other sheet now. And then I gave you narrative control to make it your sister. And then you turn that into an awesome moment that is the first time I have ever had a player attempt to kill himself. And it was fantastic narratively. And I could tell I got a couple of you as I was drawing that, the result out a little bit. But very fantastically played. All of this was wonderfully played by everybody. The whole opening thing with the Narwhal's Refuge and Old One-Eye Jake was just my way of getting you all together and giving you an opportunity to kind of RP a little bit and move you into the scenarios, which there are. I'm not going to spoil that because I know there are several other people, including Grant Ellis, WebDM, also Grant Ellis on the WebDM channel. And I know Chris Wilhelm is going to be running some material. Several people are running additional playtests this week and next week and beyond. So I don't want to spoil too much about the scenarios themselves. But there were additional scenarios included in the adventure kit. I took a skill challenge, the lamp lighting challenge, played up some personal attributes of Portia, and let you guys kind of take it from there. And I added in the Deep Ones encounter because I wanted to have more than just the Shadowlings. I think the Deep Ones are very interesting in that they're non-traditional attackers. They're very much grapple heavy, non-consensual shadow huggers, as Cameron said.
It's so bad. It's so terrible. Vile, cursed things.
And that, I mean, of course, every time you failed a wisdom save looking at them was also where you pulled on the madness tables. When that, I will say, and I did this narratively for this reason expressly. When you heard the voice of your daughter, Aubrey, Joe, that is, hearing the voice of a loved one calling to you in the darkness is one of the options. I just used it regardless of what you rolled because I knew it fit narratively with yours.
Right.
That's the only result on a table. You guys never rolled twice, rolled the same result twice. So that's the only one I kind of forced. I fudged it into that one because it made sense narratively based on your backstory that you had told in the chat. So
it totally fit. That was fantastic.
I want to thank each and every one of you for participating in this playtest. I know for at least part of the time, I don't know if they stuck around, but for at least part of the time, I know Matt was in the chat. I don't blame him if he ducked out. He's still got a little one he's taking care of, getting used to. But I would definitely make sure to pass on the feedback to the guys on comments that you made. I want to thank our audience. We had quite a few people on YouTube and Twitch. Mini Terrain Domain now simulcasts to YouTube and Twitch as a live stream. And we had quite a few people in both locations throughout the night here. So thank you to everybody that tuned in. A lot of regulars and a couple new faces. I definitely want to thank each of you. Adrian, we'll have to get you in a game sometime that isn't a playtest. That's just a regular old one-shot. But maybe you're just becoming an MTD playtester. I'm okay with that. Seth,
I'm okay with that too, man. I'm loving to play with you.
Seth and Joe definitely want to play with you guys some more. Cameron, I think we've played together a couple times at this point now.
Unfortunately, yeah.
And Karen, of course, we played together a few times as well. So all of you were fantastic. I loved that you just embraced what was thrown at you. Even knowing it was a play test, you still pushed. You played the game. We said this before we went on the air. Yes, it's a play test, but we're still playing Dungeons and Dragons. We're still playing a game together. So, first off, head over to Absolute Tabletop. Look, our Kickstarter.com. Look for Absolute Tabletop, Shadows over Driftchapel. It's still an active Kickstarter that you can back to get in on the adventure kit. Mine appears to... Oh, here we go. This is the last adventure kit, Oath of the Frozen King, that they kickstarted, that you can get a hold of a physical book like that. I've run several variations of that. I love the the modular approach to the adventure kits, that you can take what you want, leave what you don't want, and build your own adventures with little to no prep. I did the most prep I did was getting all the graphics and the overlays and the music ready. The actual game was pretty much just improv based on the materials I had. Secondly, head over to the Absolute Tabletop official group on Facebook. That's where I form games like this. That's where this group was put together. And lots of one-shots are run through that group, and it's just a great community. If you like what you saw tonight, whether you were on Twitch or YouTube, consider subscribing, following the channels, hitting the little bell icon on YouTube to stay tuned. We've got on Sunday nights, I run a Tomb of Annihilation campaign that we just finished our 28th session. On Monday, October 1st, we kick off our All That Glitters Waterdeep Dragon Heist campaign. Stay tuned because I will be releasing in the next week or so a teaser trailer intro that I put together for that. We have on Thursdays, we have our Sunless Citadel mini campaign with a bunch of crafting folks, DM Scotty, V from the Crafting Muse, Jeremy Lilly, Erasmus Expeditions, and Megan from Dice on Ice. This week we're actually doing a one-shot because one of our players can't be there, where I am going to pepper in a little bit of this. I'm using the Madness and Gloam effects tables in that, and they don't really know that. That's going to come into play because it is a little bit of a waterfaring a mission. And I'm constantly running spur of the moment one shots over in the Absolute Tabletop group right now there's an interest post for my next Affairs of Dragons game, One Flew Over the Cockatrice's Nest, where 5 people will get to play as dragon wormlings escaping from their orc captors. And I always post interest posts on the AbTab group and Twitter, so follow at MTD_Jake on Twitter if you'd like an opportunity to get in one of my games. Thanks again to all of these amazing role players for participating. Thanks to Absolute Tabletop for providing us with the material. And I'm going to end this stream, just like I end every stream, with a big old metadata.